Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take the stacks of information you sent over and turn them into the absolute necessary knowledge you need to be perfectly informed.
Today, we are opening the file on an artist whose influence, it doesn't just span decades, it really defines entire eras of music.
We are talking about Dionne Warwick, the voice, the muse, the absolute icon.
And when you really look at her career, that term icon feels, almost inadequate.
How so?
Well, what we're looking at here isn't just longevity, it's a pattern of repeated regeneration, spectacular success, often against some really overwhelming odds.
Right. She didn't just survive the changes in the industry.
No, she became indispensable to it over and over again.
So let's get those numbers on the table right away because they really they set the scale for this deep dive. The sheer volume of her charted material is just staggering.
Absolutely. If you look purely at the statistics, just the raw data from Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles chart, Warwick ranks among the 40 biggest U.S. hitmakers.
The top 40.
The top 40, yeah. And that's for the period between 1955 and 1999.
I mean, just think about the thousands of artists who charted during that time. To be in that elite group is, well, it's incredible.
It is. And if you narrow that down and look specifically at the female vocalists of that rock era, that same 55 to 99 period, she stands out even more.
Okay.
She is the second most charted female vocalist of that entire era.
The second?
The second. That is just, it's incredible longevity and consistency right there. She navigated the British invasion. She fought it off. She got through disco, punk, the rise of R&B and hip hop, all within that time frame.
And what about the total number of singles? Because that's often the true measure of a working charting artist, right?
Exactly. So she had 56 singles make the Hot 100 on their own.
Wow.
But if you count all the singles across the Hot 100, the R&B charts or the adult contemporary charts in either solo or collaborations, that number jumps to a phenomenal 80 singles in total.
Yep.
80.
Yeah.
Which is why Billboard recognizes this dominance. They rank her at number 74 on their greatest artists of all time. It's just this unbroken chain of commercial visibility that spans, 7 decades now?
Those numbers, they paint a picture of just relentless success. But what really defines that sophisticated sound we all associate with Dionne Warwick, especially in those early golden years, is that that unparalleled creative partnership.
Oh, absolutely.
We are, of course, talking about her relationship with the songwriting duo of Burt Bacharach and Hal David.
That partnership is the bedrock. There's no question. Certainly for the first decade of her career, it gave her a signature sound that was, it was completely unique in American pop music at the time.
Right.
But our mission today is to trace the full journey. We need to follow her from those initial gospel roots in New Jersey all the way through those spectacular chart victories.
And the tough times, too. Navigating those massive label changes.
Handling surprising and, often catastrophic lawsuits, and then executing these incredible chart resurrections.
And finally, we have to look at her later life role, her philanthropy, her emergence as this very modern, very sharp-witted digital culture icon.
It's a career arc built on talent, for sure, but also resilience. And this ability to find a new mountain to climb every single time a previous peak just collapsed from under her.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start right at the beginning.
Yeah.
To really understand the precision and the sophistication she brought to pop music, we absolutely have to start where she started, East Orange, New Jersey.
Born Marie Dionne Warwick, December 12, 1940. And for her, music wasn't just a career choice. It was the cultural and spiritual language of her entire family.
The foundation was gospel.
Deep, deep gospel. Her parents, Arthur Lee Drinkard and Mansell Warwick, they provided this really fascinating domestic environment.
Her father was a classic multi-hyphenate.
Lee was everything, a Pullman porter, a chef, and also a record promoter and a certified public accountant.
So he had both the artistic contacts and the business acumen. That's a rare combination.
Very rare. And her mother, Mansell, she managed the famous Drinkard Singers. So music business was literally the family business.
And her own start was strictly spiritual at first.
Absolutely. She began singing as a child at her grandfather's AME church in Newark, and later they moved to the New Hope Baptist Church. That training, singing in the choir with the family groups, It provided this intense, disciplined foundation. It was all focused on vocal precision, power, delivery.
It's structure married to soul.
That's a great way to put it. And listen, this wasn't just a family that sang. This was a vocal dynasty that really runs through the entire history of American music.
Okay, let's break that down.
You have her younger sister, Delia, who is better known as D. Warwick. She became a very successful R&B singer in her own right.
She did the original You're No Good.
That's the one. Then you have her maternal aunt, Cissy Houston, a legendary session singer who eventually went solo. And of course, Cissy's daughter,
Warwick's first cousin.
the one and only Whitney Houston.
That is just an unbelievable concentration of vocal power and industry influence, all flowing through one single family lineage. It's astounding.
It is. And if you want to extend that musical aristocracy even further into the classical world, the opera diva Leontine Price is also a maternal cousin.
No way.
Yeah. And the family gospel group, the Drinkard Singers, they weren't just a local church group. They were significant RCA recording artists.
So she was exposed to the professional side of music from a very young age.
Her first time on television was performing with them on the show TV Gospel Time. That experience, it exposed her to professional touring, to recording dynamics, way before she was even thinking about a solo career.
So she has this intense, structured gospel foundation, which naturally leads her to pursue a formal education in music.
Right. After graduating from East Orange High School in 1959, she went on to the Hart College of Music in West Hartford, Connecticut.
But while she was on that academic path, she was also clocking those practical, street-smart music hours in New York City.
She was living a total dual life. While she was studying at Hart, she and a group of singers, including her Aunt Cissy and Doris Reeky Troy, they formed a group called the Gospelaires.
And they became the go-to background singers.
The most in-demand background vocalists in the entire New York recording scene. They were doing sessions for huge artists like Garnet Mims, The Drifters, Solomon Burke.
And eventually the Gospelaires became the Sweet Inspirations.
That's right, who had their own successful recording career.
I love the story about how she actually cemented her place in that high-demand session world. It's just, It's pure hustle.
Oh, it's a great story. She recounted this moment of just spontaneous confidence in an interview. She was backstage at the legendary Apollo Theater.
Okay.
And this man comes running in, totally frantic, needing background singers immediately for a session for Sam the Man Taylor.
And she just jumps at it.
As she put it, old Big Mouth here spoke up and said, "We'll do it." That one moment of just seizing an opportunity, that launched her entire high-profile professional session career.
And the dedication was just relentless. I read they were catching the bus from East Orange to the Port Authority.
Taking the subway into Manhattan, working in studios sometimes until 4 in the morning.
And still getting back to East Orange to do their homework for school.
That kind of work ethic, that early dedication, it speaks volumes. It's what built the resilience she would definitely need later on.
And that grind, it eventually led to the pivotal moment, the discovery that just fundamentally changed the entire trajectory of her career.
It happened in 1962, right at the height of the Brill Building songwriting boom. She was singing background on a Drifters track.
Mexican Divorce.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And the composer of that track was a young Burt Bacharach.
And he noticed her.
He noticed her immediately. And it wasn't just her voice, though that was obviously unique. He noticed her rhythmic ability, her perfect pitch, and just her presence, her star power in the recording booth.
I love his early assessment of her voice. Time magazine quoted it.
It's one of the best descriptions of any singer I've ever heard. He said, "She has a tremendous strong side and a delicacy when singing softly, like miniature ships in bottles."
Miniature ships in bottles. That captures it perfectly. That precision, that fragile strength inside her contralto, it's complex, but kindly contained.
Exactly. So initially, Bacharach hired her for pretty low-stakes work, just recording demonstration records of his compositions, often with his lyricist Hal David.
And they would use those demos to pitch the tunes to major labels for their big artists.
Right. She was earning, I think it was $12.50 per session. For context, that's about $130 today.
Solid money for a session singer, but yeah, not exactly the salary of a future icon.
Not at all. Well, one of those demos, a song called It's Love That Really Counts, was destined for another Scepter Records artist, the Shirelles.
But the label president heard the demo first.
The Scepter president, Florence Greenberg, she heard it, and she immediately understood that the unique voice on the demo was the star, not just the song itself.
And this is where we get that legendary quote that launched her solo career.
Greenberg told Bacharach, "Forget the song, get the girl." Simple as that. Warwick was signed to the Bacharach David production company, which was then signed to Scepter Records in 1962.
And that arrangement, signing with a production company first instead of directly with the label, that was really crucial, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely vital. It gave Bacharach the freedom to produce her without any interference from company executives.
Which was so important because his music was, well, it was different.
It was incredibly complex, and her musical ability, her skill at handling these wild key changes and difficult rhythms, it allowed them to write tunes that were far more challenging than the typical pop songs of the early 60s.
So she wasn't molded to fit pop trends.
No, pop trends were molded to fit her talent. That's the key difference.
So she signed. She's got the musical education. She has the producer who's ready to push all the boundaries. And now she just needs a debut single.
And this is where we get the name change and an unforgettable title that comes directly from, believe it or not, Professional Anger.
Her first solo single, released in November 1962, was Don't Make Me Over.
And that title came directly from this really angry exchange she had with Bacharach and David about the direction of her career.
Let's get into that moment because it really defines her personality. She's not a pushover.
Not at all. She found out that they had given away a song that she had recorded the demo for, a song she wanted as her first single.
Make it easy on yourself.
Right. They gave it to Jerry Butler. And she was furious. She snapped the phrase, "Don't make me over" at them in anger, basically telling them, don't try to change who I am or how I operate.
And Bacharach, being the genius he was, he hears a hit.
He immediately recognized that phrase as a perfect title and hook for a song. That moment of pure frustration literally became her first top 40 pop hit. It reached number 21, and it was a top 5 R&B hit.
But the other critical detail from that debut single was accidental. The spelling of her name.
Yes. Her birth name was Warwick, W-A-R-R-I-C-K, but there was a misspelling on the single's label. They spelled it Warwick, W-I-C-K.
And she just rolled with it.
She embraced it. She adopted the new spelling professionally and personally from then on. Just imagine, a decades-long legendary career launched by a combination of a producer's artistic insight and a simple typo on a record.
That accidental name change paid off almost immediately. After a few smaller charting songs, her fourth single, Anyone Who Had a Heart, released late in '63, it just exploded.
That was her first U.S. top 10 hit, peaked at number 8, became an international million seller, and it was followed very quickly in April '64 by Walk On By.
Another massive international hit and million seller. That 1-2 punch just completely solidified her career.
It did. That rapid succession of huge hits established her as a fixture on the charts for the rest of the 1960s. It was a testament to the power of that Bacharach-David Warwick machine.
What's truly remarkable is that she was having all this success right in the middle of the British invasion.
A period that absolutely decimated the careers of so many American artists. But she was so popular internationally, especially in the UK, that British singers started actively recording her material.
Right, they were releasing cover versions simultaneously to compete with her.
And this is where we get into that famous artistic and competitive conflict, especially with the British singer Cilla Black.
Right, Cilla Black, who was working with Beatles producer George Martin, she had a massive #1 UK hit with her version of Anyone Who Had a Heart, right as Warwick's version was charting there.
And Warwick was, let's just say she was not pleased about this, especially with songs that felt so uniquely tailored to her own vocal instrument. It must have felt like a kind of artistic appropriation.
I can imagine it was her sound.
She felt insulted. She recalled being told that UK executives simply wanted her songs recorded by someone who sounded less American.
Wow.
So she later met Cilla Black while touring in Britain, and the encounter just shows her incredible confidence and her candor.
What exactly did she say to her?
She gave Black some, let's call it very candid advice. This is a direct quote from Warwick. She said, "I told her that You're My World would be my next single in the States."
Okay. Little heads up.
I honestly believe that if I'd sneezed on my next record, then Cilla would have sneezed on hers too. There was no imagination in her recording.
That is next level confidence, just calling her out directly.
It's a bold assertion of her originality and the fact that, in her view, Black was simply following her lead, not creating anything new.
But the hits just kept coming for her in the U.S., regardless of what was happening in the U.K.
Oh, they absolutely peaked. In 1966, Message to Michael hit the top 10, which is notable because Bacharach and David were initially convinced it was a man song. Her interpretation proved them wrong.
She also had big hits with trains and boats and planes, and I just don't know what to do with myself.
And in January 67, the album Here Where There Is Love was her first RIAA certified gold album. She was on top of the world.
And then there's the famous story of the song Alfie. This is another one of those moments where producers insisted on a British vocalist, even though Bacharach clearly wanted his muse.
That's right. Bacharach had been contracted to produce the song for the Michael Caine film, and he wanted Warwick to sing it. He knew her range and her phrasing were perfect for that really complex melody.
But the producers said no.
The British producers insisted on a British subject, so they gave it to Cilla Black again. And Black's version, it peaked at a really low number 95 in the US. Cher's cover actually did better, hitting number 33.
But Warwick's version found its way to the public anyway.
It did. Her recording became a huge radio hit when disc jockeys just started playing the album cut off the Here Where There Is Love LP.
So they just ignored the official single.
Completely. It was released as the B-side to another song, The Beginning of Loneliness, and the DJs just flipped the single over, turned the B-side into a hit, and made it this double-sided success for her without any real promotion from the label.
So here's where it gets really interesting in terms of commercial validation. In 1967, she earned her first official RIA-certified gold single for sales over 1 million units.
For I Say a Little Prayer.
Her biggest U.S. hit up to that point, reaching number 4.
And crucially, that song was the first RIAA-certified million seller, not just for Warwick, but for the entire Bacharach-David songwriting duo. It was the moment the public officially validated their specific, sophisticated chemistry.
And the follow-up track was A Total Anomaly, theme from Valley of the Dolls. That song became this massive double-sided hit with I Say a Little Prayer, but it breaks that narrative of the exclusive Bacharach-David collaboration.
It was so unusual. First, like you said, it was not written by Bacharach and David. It was penned by Andre and Dori Previn.
Right. And second, Warwick almost didn't even record it.
Yeah, she was reluctant after Judy Garland, who was originally slated to sing it for the film, was fired. But when the film became a success in early '68, the DJs did it again. They flipped the single, creating one of the biggest double-sided hits of the entire rock era and another million seller for Warwick.
And the source material notes that she was given an in-house award for the million sales because of the RIAA rules at the time. Can you unpack that for us?
This is a fascinating bit of recording history. The RIAA rules back then, governing gold certification, often only allowed one side of a single to be certified.
Okay.
So since I Say a Little Prayer had already achieved gold status, the label, Scepter, couldn't officially certify the flip side, Valley of the Dolls.
Even though it was a huge hit on its own.
Exactly. So they gave her a special in-house award to recognize that the single, combined, had sold over 2 million units.
That just highlights how commercially unstoppable she was at that moment.
It does. And it's also worth mentioning that because of contractual restrictions, her film version of the song couldn't be on the official soundtrack LP.
So what did she do?
She had to re-record a completely new version, arranged by Pat Williams for her own album, Dionne, Warwick, and Valley of the Dolls.
And that album also had her next big hit.
Yes, the massive follow-up, Do You Know the Way to San Jose? That album hit number 6 on the Billboard album chart, stayed there for over a year, and went gold. The film soundtrack, without her vocals, notably, failed commercially.
And San Jose was another huge international million seller. A top 10 hit everywhere. Her final years at Scepter were just packed with successes like I'll Never Fall in Love Again,
which peaked at number 6 on the pop charts and number 1 on adult contemporary in 1969.
So by the end of 1971, the scale of her impact was it was undeniable.
Yeah, she had sold an estimated 35 million singles and albums internationally in less than 9 years. She was the priority act at Scepter Records.
But the relationship with the label was getting tense, especially around the money.
Right. She was requesting RIAA audits as early as 1967 because the label's accounting was reportedly very lax.
So she'd outgrown Scepter, financially, creatively, commercially. What was the next logical step for a global phenomenon like her?
In 1971, she made a truly monumental move. She left the smaller, sort of family atmosphere of Scepter for the big leagues at Warner Bros. Records.
And she got a massive contract.
A $5 million contract, which was at the time the most lucrative recording contract ever given to a female vocalist.
That just signaled her commercial power, in no uncertain terms.
It did, but the timing of that immense business deal was, it was just utterly brutal. That move coincided almost exactly with the complete fracturing of her central creative team.
Her lifeline.
Precisely. Bacharach and David produced her first album for Warner's, but in 1972, their decade-long collaboration ended in total disaster.
What happened?
It was after the film Lost Horizon. They wrote the score and the tunes for it, and it was just absolutely panned by critics. The legendary songwriting duo basically terminated their working relationship, largely due to creative and financial disputes surrounding that film.
And this left Warwick in an absolutely impossible position. She just signed a record-breaking contract that was predicated on having their custom-made music.
Exactly. She was contractually obligated to fulfill this massive contract with Warner Bros., but suddenly, the source of her signature sound, the two men who wrote for her voice, was gone.
And this quickly spiraled into legal action.
It did. Warwick filed a huge $5.5 million lawsuit against them for breach of contract. She argued that their breakup prevented her from achieving the success that was promised by her own contract.
Which was eventually settled out of court, but it took years.
Nearly 7 years. The case was settled in 1979 for $5 million. And crucially, the settlement included the rights to all of her Bacharach-David Scepter recordings.
That's huge. She got her legacy back.
It was a vital piece of her legacy to regain control over. That partnership had defined her life, but its bitter end dictated the entire next phase of her career.
So that period immediately after the partnership ended, the Warner Bros.
Yeah.
Years from 72 to 78, that's when her career really struggled.
It was a very rough stretch. I mean, despite her remaining a top concert draw around the world, the hits just stopped.
It's a textbook example of what happens when a muse loses her primary creative voice.
It is. Without Bacharach and David, she was forced to work with this rotating cast of producers, and that precision, that distinct sound that characterized all her hits, it just dried up. She failed to register a major album or a major pop hit for years.
And we see a really palpable sign of desperation during this downturn.
Yes, the famous and frankly kind of bizarre spelling change.
To Warwick.
She briefly changed the spelling of her professional name to Warwick, with an E on the end, on the advice of an astrologer friend, Linda Goodman.
Who convinced her it would bring greater success.
It did not. She reverted back to the original spelling a few years later after a string of disappointments and a total absence from the Billboard Top 40. It just shows how much she was grasping for solutions in that post-Bacharach creative wilderness.
The only single exception that really saved her from being totally silent during this era was a huge, expertly produced duet in 1974.
Then came You, her duet with the Spinners, produced by the phenomenal Tom Bell,
The architect of the Philadelphia soul sound.
And this became her first ever U.S. #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100.
Which is so ironic considering it happened during what was really the lowest period of her overall visibility.
It is. And Tom Bell told a great anecdote about her initial reaction to the track.
I love this story.
Bell, who was a total visionary as a producer, he recalled that when the session finished, she made this, quote, strange face, basically indicating she wasn't fond of the production or the material.
She didn't think it was a hit.
Not at all. But Bell was certain it was. He proposed the symbolic wager with her. He ripped the dollar bill in two, and they exchanged the signed halves. He told her, if it doesn't go #1, I'll send you my half.
And of course it did.
It took off and went all the way to the top, and she sent him his half back with an apology note for doubting his vision.
That story is actually really vital because it shows her developing this professional trust in other creative voices, which she had to do after the trauma of the Bacharach split.
Exactly. It proved she could succeed without her former partners. But one hit wasn't enough to save her Warner Bros. Contract.
Which expired in 1977 with no other major successes.
Right. She needed a total reinvention. And she found it with the man who was famous for reinventions, Clive Davis at Arista Records.
And the move to Arista, starting in 1979, is the quintessential chart resurrection story. How did Clive Davis approach her comeback?
He personally signed her and guided her. He recognized that her voice was this timeless instrument that just needed the right material and the right producer. He gave her this really powerful encouragement.
What did he say?
He told her, you may be ready to give the business up, but the business is not ready to give you up.
Wow.
He provided the belief she needed to launch her second major chapter.
And he was right. Her very first Arista single was I'll Never Love This Way Again.
Produced by the man known for great arrangements and melodic pop, Barry Manilow, and that album, Dionne, it went platinum, certified over 1 million sales in the U.S., immediately reversing that whole downward trend.
The success was immediate and profound.
It was. Her next single, Deja Vu, which was co-written by Isaac Hayes, also hit #1 adult contemporary. And this led directly to her historic night at the Grammys in 1980.
And this is where we need to spend some time to really contextualize this achievement. She became the first female artist to win Grammy Awards in 2 different genres in the same year.
Yes. And this was so important at the time.
Why?
Because in the 70s and 80s, the music industry loved to put artists in these neat little genre boxes. You were pop, you were R&B, you were country.
Right.
So winning Best Pop Vocal Performance, female for I'll Never Love This Way Again, and Best R&B Vocal Performance, female for Deja Vu, proved that she defied categorization.
It was proof that her sound just transcended those simple boxes.
It allowed her to appeal to multiple demographics without ever being limited by any one of them.
She also spent some time hosting the weekly TV show Solid Gold, which kept her constantly visible to a mass audience outside of just her record releases.
She did. Throughout 1980 and 81, and then again from 85 to 86. But another major comeback hit was still waiting in the wings. The collaboration with Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees.
The Heartbreaker album in 1982.
Right. Clive Davis had been inspired by Gibb's tremendous success, writing and co-producing Barbra Streisand's Guilty album, and he wanted to replicate that magic. And the collaboration was just perfect.
The title track, Heartbreaker, released in late '82, it became one of her biggest international hits ever.
It was huge. #1 adult contemporary, #2 in the UK and Australia. It ultimately sold 3 million copies internationally.
And much like the Tom Bell story, she didn't actually like this one at first either.
That's right. She later admitted she wasn't initially fond of Heartbreaker. She found it too light. But she trusted Barry Gibb's judgment and his production skills.
This period really shows her developing that crucial professional skill. The ability to recognize and submit to a strong creative vision, even if it differs from her initial instinct.
It's what allowed her to sustain her career. The album went gold in the US, and it was her most successful album in the UK, certified platinum there.
The mid-'80s saw her shift her focus to something truly monumental, philanthropy, particularly tackling the emerging AIDS crisis, which was still so widely misunderstood and often just ignored.
This is a crucial pivot in her career. It really emphasizes her humanitarian side. She contributed vocals to the multi-Grammy-winning charity song We Are the World in 1985.
Which raised a massive amount for African famine relief.
It did. But the defining hit of her Arista era, and maybe one of the most important songs of the decade socially, was born directly from her commitment to AIDS research.
That's what friends are for.
Recorded in 1985 as a benefit single for AMFAR, the American Foundation for AIDS Research. It was credited to Dionne and Friends.
Featuring Gladys Knight, Elton John, and Stevie Wonder.
This was truly pioneering work. At the time, talking about AIDS openly was highly stigmatized. Artists who risked their commercial standing to support the cause were very rare.
And the result was this staggering commercial success that channeled massive funds to a vital cause.
It raised over $3 million for AMFAR, and musically, it just dominated the charts. It was a rare triple #1 hip-hop, R&B, and adult contemporary.
And Billboard ranked it as the most popular song of 1986.
It was. And Warwick talked about her emotional motivation for it. She said, "I'm tired of hurting, and it does hurt," referring to the devastation of AIDS and the friends she had lost. That song was driven by raw emotion and a real sense of duty.
But beyond the charts and the charity, that song symbolized an immensely powerful professional and personal healing.
The reconciliation with Burt Bacharach.
Exactly.
It did. The song was written by Bacharach and his then-wife, Carol Bayer Sager. It completely cemented her reconciliation with Burt after more than a decade of professional separation and legal wrangling.
It brought them full circle.
As Warwick said of their renewed bond, "We realized we were more than just friends. We were family. Time has a way of giving people the opportunity to grow and understand."
That collaborative spirit continued too. She had another hit with Love Power in 1987, a duet with Jeffrey Osborne.
Which was also written by Bacharach and Carol Bayer Sager. It hit #1 adult contemporary again. Her Arista resurrection, built on trust, on versatility, and on philanthropy, was complete.
Okay, let's step back now and really analyze the instrument behind this unparalleled career. We've used the word sophistication a lot, but what exactly defined Dionne Warwick's vocal identity and allowed her to conquer so many genres?
Well, technically, she is categorized as a contralto.
The lowest female vocal range.
Right. Typically powerful and dense. But what made her signature sound so distinct was its quality, that famous husky voice. Critics noted that, especially early on, her wide vocal range gave her the ability to deliver those powerful contralto low notes and then just suddenly soar as a soprano.
That flexibility is what allowed her to navigate those complex melodies and the unusual chord changes that defined Bacharach's music.
Oh.
It really set her apart from her Motown and pure R&B contemporaries.
Exactly. Bacharach's compositions often use these really unusual and complex characteristics. We're talking about intricate time signatures.
Like switching mid-song from 44 to 54 time.
Yes, like he did in Promises, Promises. Or using these syncopated rhythms that demanded incredible precision. They required a singer with conservatory-level training, like Warwick, who had perfect pitch and timing to execute those difficult, almost jazz-influenced phrases.
She was essentially a classical instrument being applied to pop music.
That's a great way to think about it. And her voice evolved. By the 1980s, Stephen Holden at the New York Times observed that her voice had deepened into a near baritone at its bottom end, resulting in an ever more fascinating vocal personality.
So that continuous development, her subtle phrasing, her clear diction, her vocal texture, that kept her relevant, even as her material changed from 60s pop to 80s power ballads.
For sure.
So let's focus on this critical concept that just permeates her legacy. The idea of her being the muse of Bacharach and David. It's a beautiful word, but what does it mean in practical terms for a songwriter?
This description is used constantly by music critics, and Bacharach himself confirmed it. He said they considered Warwick their main artist, the one to whom they gave first priority on all new songs.
So it means they weren't just writing generic pop tunes and trying to plug her into them?
No, they were writing songs that were specifically tailored to her vocal strengths and her emotional delivery.
And what was that emotional role she played in their music?
One critic, Carol Cooper, noted that Warwick's interpretation of their songs established her as the eloquent voice of wounded feminine pride. She gave these really intellectual, high-concept lyrics a profound emotional grounding.
So when you hear Walk On By, it's not just another breakup song.
No, it's a detailed narrative of sophisticated, contained heartbreak.
And she has always claimed she didn't find their material difficult precisely because they wrote it for her voice. Is that the essence of that muse relationship?
It is. They utilized her range and her phrasing skills perfectly. Michael Musto captured it well, saying her voice was the perfect venue for Bacharach David hits, noting that Dionne could do sultry, pained, wispy, and regretful, all with sophisticated phrasings. If the music was challenging, it was only because it was designed to maximize her unique talent.
It wasn't just a successful collaboration, it actually created an industry blueprint for high art pop music.
Absolutely. Their partnership set a clear precedent for later sophisticated R&B collaborations. You can draw a straight line to the defining work done by Toni Braxton and Babyface.
Her musical sophistication, it just transcended simple genre boundaries, which often made her hard to categorize.
Very hard. You look at her contemporaries. Aretha Franklin is soul, Ella Fitzgerald is jazz, but Warwick always kind of hovered slightly outside of any pure definition.
Why couldn't she be pinned down so easily?
The music reviewer William Ruhlman addressed this directly. He wrote that while she grew up singing gospel, and she has influences from jazz singers like Fitzgerald and Vaughan, and R&B is part of her background,
She isn't truly a pure gospel, jazz, R&B, or soul singer.
right, she couldn't be boxed in.
So how do we define her then?
Another reviewer, Steve Leggett, described her as a pure pop singer who just expertly combines all those other elements. And she is almost universally labeled a sophisticated vocalist.
I think the Los Angeles Times summed it up best. They called her that one-of-a-kind instrument that defined pop sophistication in the mid-1960s.
And that's it. It's that unique combination of gospel discipline, conservatory training, jazz phrasing, and Bacharach's compositional complexity that defined her sound for posterity.
We've covered the creative and artistic peaks, but now we have to acknowledge the complex business and financial challenges that really marked the later decades of her career. And one of the most unforgettable aspects of the 1990s was her ubiquitous role in the Psychic Friends network.
That's right. From 1991 to 1998, Warwick hosted the infomercials for that 900-number psychic service. And this was an undeniable commercial hit.
It was everywhere.
It was. She was reportedly earning over $3 million per year as the spokesperson. It was, for a time, the most successful infomercial program running.
But that immense financial success, which was certainly welcome after all the financial turbulence of the previous decades, it came with a significant personal cost, didn't it?
It really did. Her longtime friend and tour manager, Henry Carr, he recounted this really painful anecdote about Warwick being recognized in an airport.
Okay.
A child recognized her, not as the legendary singer of Walk On By or San Jose, but heartbreakingly as that psychic lady on TV.
Oh, that's rough.
Carr said Warwick was absolutely crushed by that experience. She felt she had worked too hard as an entertainer and a humanitarian to have her legacy overshadowed by a phone-in service.
And the financial headwinds didn't stop there. There was also that significant controversy surrounding her AIDS foundation just a few years later.
Yes. In 1993, the ABC News program Day One aired a report which alleged serious financial improprieties by the Warwick Foundation, which she had founded in 1989 to benefit AIDS patients.
And given how much she had done for that cause with her massive hit song, must have been a particularly difficult controversy.
It was. The report claimed the foundation was operating at an excessively high administrative cost, something like exceeding 90% of its budget.
Which means it was allegedly donating only about 3% of the money it raised directly to AIDS groups.
Exactly. The report claimed she was flying first class and staying at first-class hotels for charity events that were managed by her confidant, Guy Draper.
That disparity would be a major ethical red flag for any charity.
It certainly was perceived that way. Now, Warwick fiercely defended herself. She alleged the report was racially motivated and threatened to sue for defamation, though a lawsuit was never actually filed.
But the IRS did get involved.
Yes, the IRS began an investigation after other complaints were filed, and the Warwick Foundation was later dissolved. It was a really complex and unfortunate episode that juxtaposed her genuine charitable intent against what seems to have been significant organizational and management failure.
And unfortunately, these persistent financial and management issues, they culminated years later in a formal declaration of bankruptcy.
In 2013, she declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy in New Jersey. She explicitly cited business mismanagement that led to massive tax debts.
What were the numbers?
Her listed liabilities included nearly $7 million owed to the IRS for the years 1991 to 1999, plus over $3 million in business taxes owed to the state of California. Her lawyer basically confirmed that bankruptcy was the only course of action to resolve debts that had just grown too large due to years of poor accounting.
That financial story, from the record-breaking $5 million contract to a $7 million IRS debt, it highlights this complex tension between her undeniable artistic brilliance and her struggle with the operational aspects of managing a major international enterprise.
It truly does. It is worth noting, however, that the IRS later recognized an accounting error on their part and revoked $1.2 million of the tax lien, which slightly reduced the burden. But the underlying issue of financial mismanagement remained the defining feature of that era.
And looking briefly at her personal life, we can see an early indicator of that strong professional independence she had.
You're talking about her marriage to actor and drummer William Elliott.
Married in '66, divorced in '67, remarried him later that year, and then divorced for good in 1975.
Yes, and she was very direct about the dynamic in that marriage, particularly her role as the primary earner.
What'd she say?
She commented, "I was the breadwinner. The male ego is a fragile thing. It's hard when the woman is the breadwinner." She was always the one driving the financial engine, which set her apart from many of her female contemporaries. She noted that aside from her father, she had always taken care of herself financially.
And the family musical legacy continued through her two sons, proving that those Drinker-Warwick Houston musical genes persisted.
Oh, absolutely. Both followed her into music. Her older son, David Elliott, who was a former LAPD officer, he became a singer-songwriter and notably co-wrote Love Will Find a Way, a duet with Whitney Houston for his mother's 1993 album.
And he tours with her now sometimes, right?
He does, as her drummer. And her younger son, Damon Elliott, is a highly successful music producer. He's worked with artists like Pink and Christina Aguilera, and he arranged and produced his mother's 2006 album, My Friends and Me.
So, transitioning to the present day, Dionne Warwick has undergone yet another fascinating career regeneration. Not on the musical charts this time, but as a personality in modern digital culture.
She has become a complete viral sensation. It just demonstrates her ability to connect with entirely new generations. She appeared as Mouse on The Masked Singer in 2020.
And later as Weather on the UK version in 2023.
Right, and that exposure, combined with her incredible presence on social media, has just solidified her status as a modern icon.
She is now affectionately known as the Queen of Twitter.
And for good reason. Her candid, straightforward opinions about, well, everything. From music to politics, they're often delivered with this deadpan style that just cuts through all the noise.
Her digital persona is a perfect extension of that assertive personality we saw snap at Bacharach and David back in 1962.
It is. She speaks her mind without a filter, and that authenticity resonates massively with a generation that's exhausted by polished, curated celebrity.
And this new generation of relevance coincides with some long overdue institutional recognition for her career.
It does. She received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2024 in the Musical Excellence category.
A category basically designed for artists like her, whose unique contributions and sophistication transcend the typical rock definition.
Exactly. She was also a Kennedy Center honoree in 2023, and she continues to use her platform for good, too,
Like her 2021 duet, Nothing's Impossible, with Chance the Rapper.
which supports two charities, Social Works and Hunger. Not impossible.
And this year, 2024, she was honored locally. An induction into the Atlantic City Walk of Fame, and her hometown of East Orange, New Jersey, renamed a street for her.
North Arlington Avenue at City Hall Plaza is now Dionne Warwick Way. A career that started with a simple misspelling on a record label has culminated in a globally recognized street sign.
What stands out to me most from this deep dive is just the sheer volume of material she mastered and popularized.
Yeah.
56 Hot 100 singles, 80 charted overall, and her ability to maintain this prominence across two distinct golden eras.
Right. The Scepter Golden Era with Bacharach and David, and then the Arista Revival with Clive Davis, Barry Gibb, and her reconciliation with Bert.
It speaks to an incredible, almost unparalleled professional adaptability.
It does. Her unique contralto voice made her the perfect vessel for that complex, sophisticated material, which is why critics often struggle to box her in.
She was never just R&B, never just pop.
No, she was a fusion of all her experiences: gospel, jazz, R&B, conservatory training, and her commitment to philanthropy, especially her pioneering work raising millions for AIDS research in the mid-'80s. It shows how she consistently used her enormous stardom for immense good, transcending her own professional struggles.
Her entire narrative is really defined by these powerful partnerships, and then how she was forced to find new strength when they ended.
Yeah. We saw how Dionne Warwick's professional name came from a simple, accidental misspelling, and how that voice became the definitive instrument for Bacharach and David's compositions, defining the sound of an entire decade.
Think about that concept of the muse. She had music written specifically for her, creating this seamless fit between singer and song that is so rarely replicated. The music was a reflection of her voice.
So what does this all mean for the history of music?
Well, consider how that intense muse status affected her resilience when that defining creative partnership ended in legal chaos in 1972, triggering a struggle that lasted for almost a decade.
It forced her, a singer who was used to perfection written specifically for her, to find entirely new soundscapes and new trusted partners, from Tom Bell to Barry Gibb, to sustain her legendary 7-decade career.
So the final thought for you to take away is this. What ultimately defines an artist more? The unbreakable consistency and clarity of their signature sound, or the remarkable ability to rebuild, regenerate success, and find new avenues for expression when their primary creative source just disappears?
Something for you to ponder as you listen through her incredible catalog.